Now, for more insights on the government work report, I spoke to Derek Siccors, a resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute here in Washington. I started by asking him about his thoughts on this growth target.
I think there was a period, we know that Chinese demography, Chinese population, the age cohort coming in, the group coming into the workforce, younger people, was huge in the 90s and in parts of the 2000s. And creating jobs was an absolute imperative. And so you had to have rapid growth, however you measured it, to create those jobs, 8, 9, whatever percent. The point is you needed to have rapid growth. That's less and less true. That's why a wonderful departure at the NPC would have been to say, all right, we're going to tell you 7.5% growth. That's not really what's important anymore because the job situation is more stable. This is what's important. And it could be debt, it could be pollution, whatever they want to work on. That would have been a welcome change. We're de-emphasizing the growth figure because we don't need to emphasize it as much.
Going into the report and into this conference, there's a lot of discussion potentially of what might happen on the regulatory front when it comes to risk, specifically with the banks, the regulated banks, and also the shadow system. They did not go into great detail. What would you have liked to have seen?
I would have liked to have seen something that says it's okay to have a default. It's okay to have a bankruptcy. We have a gigantic financial system now. This is not China 20 years ago. In huge financial systems, there are defaults and there are bankruptcies. Don't worry about this. We can control the risk to the system as a whole. There are risks when you invest. You take those risks. Sometimes firms go out of business. That's okay. It's not a national problem. We can move forward.
That said, what should China do to minimize that risk?
I'm not even sure I want them to minimize the risk. They have gone so far to the side. I mean, think about China's bank lending is now, at 72 trillion renminbi. How can you not have bankruptcies? How can you not have failed loans in that? You need to allow that. And what they should minimize is the systemic risk so that you can't have a sequence of failed loans. You can't have a whole sector that's a problem or an entire bank that goes under. Part of its portfolio, fine, but not a big bank, not a sector. That's what they should be focusing on, the system risk, not the little risks.
Tell us how the system risk relates to the rest of the world and how that would be incorporated in sort of that global central bank strategy.
Well, China affects the rest of the world in very different ways. If you're a commodities producer, China is incredibly important. There's no other country is important. No combination of countries is important as China. If you're not involved in commodities, China's much less important. So for central bankers who are in commodity producing countries like Brazil or Australia, you have to look at that risk and say, any risk to China is very important to us. If you're in Europe or the US, you have your own problems, of course, but the risk from China's banking problems is pretty low. China kind of makes the banking coordination problem in the world harder, not because it's doing anything wrong, but because it has such different trade and economic relationships with countries around the world that they have different reactions to risk in China.
Pollution has been a main concern for China. One of the challenges is coming out with a solution that actually works. Your thoughts?
It takes a long time for pollution to get this bad. It's going to take a long time to improve, even with decisive action right now. China has diagnosed the problem correctly, and they just haven't acted. And the problem is excess capacity. And we hear this, you see this in state media all the time. You hear it from government officials. There's too much capacity in steel. There's too much capacity in aluminum. These are high energy, high polluting industries. They absolutely know the problem. But everybody says the same thing. You're right, there's too much capacity. Cut someone else's first. Mine is good capacity. Theirs is bad capacity. Their province, their technology, it's all wrong. Somebody has to take the lead on this. It's not going to solve the problem right away. No one should expect that. They have to say, look, we really have to close down a lot of firms. That's going to be a start to solving the pollution problem, and it will help other economic problems as well.
Derek Siccors, resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute. Thank you.